We will get going today and talk about the Spanish Golden Visa. And in particular today, we're going to concentrate on the withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa. As I'm sure a lot of you who are aware, who are watching this, we had some news April this year regarding the withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa. Since then, we've been left a little bit in limbo in terms of what is going to be happening. We know a little bit more information now, which I will share with you. And we're going to a little bit of detail about the Spanish Golden Visa, what it is, the benefits it has, whether you can still apply, all that sort of thing. So I'll cover all of that today for you. Before we get started, a few bits of housekeeping. On the front screen here, you do have my name, obviously, which is Sam Daynes. I'm a senior wealth manager here at Holborn Assets. You've got my telephone number there, which is 00447969059122. I'm also on WhatsApp. It is a UK number, but I am actually based over here in Spain. I just kept my UK number. So if you pop that into your phone and save it, you can communicate with me via WhatsApp, which is always relatively easy to do. But underneath that, you've also got my email, which is sam.danes@holbornassets.com. And in an attempt to move with technology, I've also got a QR code there at the top. If you scan the QR code, that will actually allow you to book directly into my diary in any available appointments that are there. The only issue with that is a lot of people that watch these webinars aren't necessarily based here in Spain. You might be in the US or in Australia or wherever you may be, so the times may not match. And also, we are very busy at the moment, as you can imagine, with the withdrawal. However, you do want an appointment, if you WhatsApp me or you email me, I can see what I can do to fit you in. I can work outside the normal hours, particularly now with everything that's happened, or I can even get one of my colleagues to speak to you. So please save all them, the numbers there. We will also send you a copy of this webinar out following this presentation, so that if you do miss any of it or you want to go back through anything, you can do so. Okay, so that's the housekeeping in order. As I say, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa. I will say before I go on to the agenda as well, we offer free reviews of this. So I know when we're covering all the points that we do today, I may not cover everything that is relevant to yourself or the questions that you have, although I will do my best to do so. Therefore, feel free to, as I say, contact me. It's completely free. We can talk about your individual situation and see how we can help you. Right, so with no further ado, let's get started. So today what we're going to do is we're going to cover an agenda, a number of points on here, some of which I'll move through quicker than others, as there are more relevant points to you guys watching. First of all, what I will do is just tell you a little bit about Holborn Assets and Holborn Pass. Holborn Pass is actually the part of Holborn who actually deal with the Golden Visa side of it, so what we're talking about today. But we're part of Holborn Assets, and I'll tell you how the two kind of come together. We'll talk about the changes to the Spanish Golden Visa. As I said, we knew back in April that it was going to change. We knew, well, it was announced as the withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa. Quite how this will pan out is another story altogether. But we will talk about the changes that are coming in, the timescales, that sort of thing. Someone's just raised their hand. I will answer questions towards the end. Let me just see if... Okay, I've got a hand up. What I'm going to do, as long as you can hear me okay, I will answer anything towards the end, just in case I cover it during the presentation today. What I also want to do is talk a bit about residency by investment and what that actually means, because there is residency and there is citizenship, and they are two very different things, different programs depending on where they're based. It can be a residency by investment program, or it can be a citizenship by investment program. So I can talk about what the difference is there. Also, a little bit about the Spanish Golden Visa, what that actually gives you in terms of the benefits, what the process is, how long that process will take to go through, whether there is still time to do that, which I think is the key question for a lot of people. So I'll cover all of that. I'll give you some options that are still available in terms of the Spanish Golden Visa, and we will come on to that just to give you an idea of what you can do and how you can actually achieve that. And I will cover any questions and answers as best I can in the time I've got. But if I don't cover any of the points that you want to go through, as I say, a number of people have raised their hands. I've had a couple of questions come in. I will try to address it at the end. If there's not time, simply drop me a WhatsApp, an email, and I will do that and go through that for you. So what we'll do now is we'll talk about the Holborn Assets and Holborn Pass and how the two kind of come together. So importantly, Holborn Assets, so this is the company I work for here. We're actually a global wealth management firm. So we started back in 1998. So we've been going around 26 years now, a long time. And we were set up as a wealth management company. So we do things such as investments, pensions, mortgages, insurances, all the areas of financial planning. And we started back in 1998, British family firm. And over the period of time since then, we expanded into lots of different countries all over the globe. Now with over 500 employees, we've got 20 international offices, including one here in Spain, which is where I'm based. We're down the south of Spain in the Malaga region. It's incredibly hot today. It's about 32 degrees. It's lovely. Sun is shining. But yeah, we're down in the south of Spain. We've got 20,000 clients, or around 25,000 clients worldwide. And me, myself, I actually worked in the UK for companies such as HSBC. I'm fully qualified financial advisor, Wesleyan Assurance, Nationwide Building Society. And I made the move over to Spain around around 6.5 years ago. So I've kind of been through this process myself. So I moved over here, had to go through all the bits you have to go through to sort of make yourself resident here. So I know how it works. I know how the system works here. I know the advantages and I know the disadvantages myself. Now, what happened with regards to the company and how Holborn Pass came into this? Around sort of seven or 8 years ago, because we're a wealth management firm, a lot of people like the idea of having a very good investment, but also they like the idea of having the benefits of mobility, you know, being able to move around Europe, having the way the world is now, being able to move around freely. So it made sense for us as a company to actually look at starting Holborn Pass. Now, Holborn Pass essentially looks at the golden visa side of it, so the citizenship and residency program. But because first and foremost, we are an investment company, we are a wealth management firm, investments are our priority. So we look at good investments that will in turn give you the golden visas, okay? Whether that be for Spain, which is what I'm talking about today, or any other golden visa programs, because there are alternatives, we can do that for you. But we look at the investments and make sure that the investment is solid. So far, we've processed well over 1,000 applicants. We've had 100% success rate. So anybody looking to achieve a golden visa, we've got them through. We know what you need to do to get them through. The majority of last year, the golden visas we did was Portugal. Portugal was one of the most favored programs because it had a lower entry point than Spain. Initially, it was around 280,000 through investing in property. You can get the Portugal golden visa. But over a period of time, that changed. And as of last year, property, real estate was actually withdrawn as being an option to get the golden visa for Portugal. So there are other methods to do it through Portugal, but now you're looking at investment funds and various other mechanisms in order to get the golden visa. In Spain, obviously, we have the option of real estate, which makes it very attractive. At the moment, we have the option of real estate, which makes it very attractive for a lot of people. But as I say, as a company, we look at the investment. We've got a 100% success rate. Not last year, we were the #1 provider of the golden visa in Portugal. So it just sort of shows you the amount of clients that we've sort of serviced. But this year, Spain has been incredibly popular. It's a very sort of unique scheme in terms of the golden visa program. And to a lot of people, it ticks a lot of the boxes. But as I say, we know this is changing. We know it's going to go. And I'll come on to what is happening or what we know so far, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. Just on the right hand side, just to let you know, we do have an excellent reputation on Trustpilot. We win numerous sort of industry awards in terms of the service we provide. So hopefully that makes you feel a little bit reassured in terms of dealing with us as a company. So let's talk a little bit about the changes to the Spanish golden visa and what we know. Okay, so we sort of rewind back to April this year, Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, essentially made an announcement that he's going to start the process of eliminating the Spanish golden visa. Now, without going too much into the politics side of things, a lot of this I feel really was a bit of a political statement. It was a new prime minister coming in, wanted to be seen to be dealing with the housing crisis that not only Spain has, but a number of other countries in the EU. And one way of doing that was to look at the golden visa, because the golden visa program obviously attracts a lot of money into the country, a lot of money into Spain. The argument would be that by a lot of people investing in property, it raises property prices. And what Pedro Sanchez effectively said is that that's making it unaffordable for people to buy homes, people living in Spain and finding it unaffordable. Whereas there may be some element of truth to that. Really, if you actually look at it and you really drill down to the figures, it's only around 0.25, or between 0.25 and 0.5% of transactions involve a golden visa. And I'd say it's more towards the 0.25. So actually, by removing the golden visa, again, this is only my opinion, will have a very little effect in terms of house prices. However, coming in as a new prime minister, making this announcement obviously does. It's a political statement more than anything else. Now, obviously, since April what's actually happened, and nothing's happened, because I think nobody really knows how they're going to deal with it. How are they going to do this? Are you going to remove certain types of real estate transactions? Are you going to remove all real estate transactions? Are you going to move investing into funds, invest into bank accounts? There's all these different ways which I'll come on to that you can get the Spanish gold visa. So it's really sitting back and waiting as to what was going to happen. What are they going to do to so-called eliminate the golden visa? Now, initially, we thought that it might just be a matter of withdrawing real estate, which is essentially what Portugal did last year. Obviously, being a neighbour here, that quite often they do follow each other closely. So we thought potentially that's what it's going to be. But I'll come on the next slide. That doesn't, in the first instance, doesn't feel like that's what it is going to be. Well, I'll come on to it. Because on the 24th of July, so last month, we actually had an update. So it took that long for us to get an update. And it gives us a little bit more of an idea about the timescales that this will take to be implemented and to go through, which I'll come on to. It is important to say, as of today, the programme remains unchanged. And I say this because I think the first question a lot of people ask me is there still time to do it? The answer to that is yes. If you use us the way it is at the moment, in the products that we have at the moment, we can actually, within the transaction, put in a guarantee that we will get this through for you, providing we have all documentation in. We know from the announcement we've had, we have enough time to get it through. But time is of the essence. So anybody that's waiting to do this, you're making it more and more difficult. But as of now, nothing has changed. Now, this is the change that come in. It's a bit of a busy slide. We spoke to our legal team, and this is really the update we got. The highlighted in yellow really is the more pertinent points, the points you need to know. So basically, the first point really is that, the idea of the Spanish government is to basically eliminate all routes towards residency by investment. So basically to eliminate the golden visa. Now, this is not just into real estate, it's into investment funds, it's into shares, into public debt. It's to get rid of the golden visa, which is a very different move to what happened in Portugal last year. Portugal was just a matter of removing real estate. Spain looks like it's trying to get rid of it. Now, I say trying to because it's really early days yet. Nothing has actually happened, and I'll come on to what actually has to happen. But as it stands at the moment, this is still what it looks like. Now, the way they do that is by basically leveraging an existing law to kind of indirectly affect the Spanish golden visa. So without going into much detail, that makes it a quicker process for the Spanish government. So bear that in mind. That's what we know now. That might not be the case, but that's how we've heard it at the moment. But at the moment, the actual transaction, the golden visa remains in what's called an amendment phase. So at the moment, they're just gathering together information, the government, they're deciding exactly what they're going to do. But that amendment phase will end on September the 4th. So that's not very far away, a couple of weeks away. And then what happens? No earlier than September the 9th, they would go into the legislative phase. Okay. That phase then is where they're going to go into more detail in terms of what they're going to do. Okay. And as mentioned on the next point down, that is the idea of this is to basically include real estate, shares, funds, and public debt, and basically eliminate the possibility of getting a Spanish golden visa. It is important to say they've also reiterated that anyone that has the golden visa, it will be honoured. And I'll come on to this. If anyone has it, they won't take it away from you retrospectively. They can't. It's written into Spanish law. So once you've got it, you've got it. Once you're in, you're in. Okay, this is for new people. Now, what you've got to bear in mind, although we're going to go into the legislative phase, I'm struggling to say that, it's a complex process. And you're going to go through several rounds of change and challenges and modifications. So you're going to go back and forward, because this affects a lot of people. So there'll be lots of objections, and then they're going to go back again, and then they're going to come back with new ideas and objections, and so far and so forth. So this could take time. And we know as a company really what happened in Portugal last year. So we know how long this can take. In Portugal, it happened in a very different way, but it really did take a fair number of months to get through. So we think the likelihood is it's not going to be until next year, very early next year, I would say, that this really would be signed off and approved and have gone through. Still speculation with this. We're keeping updated. Anybody that knows Spain will know that pretty much during August it shuts down. So to get any further information has been very difficult. But just, this is a kind of summary of where we stand. We know September the 9th, that's when the process is going to start. That's the legislative bit. And that's the point where we're going to start going back and forth. And we're going to start to know a bit more. But as it stands at the moment, it's the same. Now, as I mentioned, under Spanish law, that you can't retrospectively take a benefit away from someone. That's written into law. So they can't go back and take it away. And they have reiterated this point, So be aware that if you do get the golden visa, you can keep it, And that's, I won't go to the detail of this, but this is law within Spain, So it's important to know that. So that's where we stand at the moment. And the summary of that is really nothing has come into effect. And yes, we still have time. If you're going to do it yourself, like, for example, you're going to go look for property, residential property yourself, then it's going to become more difficult. We've got the team here in terms of the legal team, the real estate team, everything working behind the scenes so we know we can get it through. I think if you're going to start piecing together the process yourself, it becomes more difficult, which I'll come on to. And this is really it. I won't go through all the points on this, but as a company, what we do, or what we have been doing for years and years and years, and with the Spanish Golden Visa, is that we act as a one-stop shop. So we do everything from finding the best asset. As you remember what I said, we're a wealth management firm. We look at what is the best possible assets with real estate. We concentrate on real estate because that's by far the most popular and the cheapest, as it stands, route to get the Spanish Golden Visa. So we identify these real estate opportunities. We appoint the lawyers. We negotiate with the developers. We assist you with getting your fingerprints, your photographs done. We apply for the Golden Visa for you. We open a Spanish bank account for you. We get you a tax number. We file your tax returns for you on the property. So we do the whole lot. We also manage the property on an ongoing basis as well. I will say at this point, and it become more apparent as we go through the presentation, we actually concentrate on commercial property as opposed to residential property. And there is a reason for that, which we'll come on to. Commercial property is far, far cheaper, normally around 40 or 50,000 cheaper. So unless if you don't know where you're going to specifically want to move and you're not going to move into a house that you're going to live in, commercial property makes a lot more financial sense, and having it managed for you so you don't need to get involved in it. That's kind of what we do. So we assist with everything. So the idea is you have what's called a qualifying asset, the real estate, the commercial property, but you don't get involved with it. That in return gives you an income, or there's various ways you can do it, which I'll come on to, and you don't get involved with it, but you get the Golden Visa. We do it all, as I say, we come along. Also, if you want to apply for citizenship at a later point, which is your passport, we can help you with that. So we are a one-stop shop to make it as easy as possible for you to get the Golden Visa. Now, this feeds in with what I was saying before in terms of the estimated timelines. Now, this is in terms of making a purchase in Spain, similar for commercial and real estate. But just to sort of summarize this is I do have this slide, so I can send it to people when if you are interested. If today someone said, yes, I want to go ahead, I like the idea of commercial property, I want you to start the process now. Realistically, we have to get a power of attorney. That basically means that you don't need to come over here. We can open you a Spanish bank account without you being here. We can get your tax number. We, as I say, open and validate the bank account, do all that sort of thing. And it normally takes around 3 months, you see on the left-hand side, month 3, for us to get the property deed done. To get the property deed, you need a Spanish bank account, you need a tax number. We have to go through, obviously, the purchasing process, which we do all for you. But it takes about 3 months, and you then have the asset that you need to get you the Golden Visa, which is the deed on the property. You then qualify. Okay. Now, we know we've got time to do that based on the information we have from the government to get this through. And as I say, we can write this as a guarantee into the contract as long as people start the process very, very soon. Once you have the deed, what we then do is we book an appointment at the consulate and we submit your application for the golden visa. Now, Spain is unlike a lot of other golden visa programs. They will give you a response within 21 days, which is incredibly quick. And if they don't respond within 21 days, it's deemed that they've given it to you anyway. So within 21 days from that 3 months, you would have the golden visa. And when I say the golden visa, not actually the golden visa. Initially, what it is there's a number of ways of doing this, but to keep it as simple as possible for now, it's basically a visa stamped in your passport that allows you to live, to work, and study in Spain for a period of 1 year. Okay, only the 1 year to start with, and that then gives you the time to do the second part of the process. So you've started the process, then you've technically got the stamp of the golden visa in there. Then what we need to do is we need to get you in for a biometric appointment as well. There's other things we need to do amongst this. Biometric appointment is where that's the only point you actually need to come over to Spain, is to do your biometrics. And that is to taking a photograph, doing your fingerprints, all that sort of thing, processing your TIE, all this sort of thing. The TIE, essentially, if you see at the right bottom there, is your residency card. I haven't got mine with me now, but it's basically like a little resident card with a photograph on. And that then is valid initially for 3 years, and then it's renewed every 5 years. Okay, so initially the stamp in the passport for 1 year, then you get your TIE card, and then you renew it every 5 years. That's very cheap to renew. It's not very expensive to renew. It's not one of these ones that costs you thousands and thousands every time you renew it. It's very good, the Spanish program for that. The costs are low. And as I say, once you have the golden visa, they can't retrospectively take it away. So every 5 years you'd apply and just get it again and again and again. So that's the time limits of what we'd expect on a normal transaction. It can be quicker than that. Can be longer, but at the moment we're just getting it through as quickly as possible. Behind the scenes, the team are really working to make sure that everything is done immediately. As I say, August is really difficult in Spain because a lot of things shut down, so you just can't get a lot of things done. But anyway, that's the timeline, and that's why we know that we do have time. Now, in order to talking about citizenship and residency, okay, now. And I'll come on to the difference between the two. The Spanish program, as is most EU programs, is a residency by investment program. Now, residency is basically where you get the rights to live, to work, to retire, the rights to healthcare, rights to pension within the country, but you don't get things such as the rights to vote. Maybe the more specific details. Most people are actually happy with that. That residency is really all they need. That's what I've got. But you can change it into citizenship later, which I'll come on, which is basically becoming a passport holder. You can then vote, you can then move around the EU unrestricted, which I'll come on to. But in order to get the golden visa, the residency card, you can invest in a number of different ways. First one is real estate. You can also do a donation. Real estate's the most popular because it's the cheapest, and you get a nice property asset, which a lot of people like. But you can also make a donation as well. Not so popular, but for obvious reasons, it's not such an investment. You can invest into a business, you can invest into funds, or you can invest into government bonds. And I'll come on to the amounts they cost for each one on a later slide. But as I say, residency by investment is essentially in exchange for contribution via one of the real estate, the donation, the business, the funds, or the bonds, you would get a residency permit, would give you the right to live and work in that particular country. With regards to a citizenship program, that then you become full citizen, you become a passport holder, okay? So outside of the EU, which I think might be on the next slide, but outside of the EU, essentially, a lot of these programs like St. Kitts, St. Lucia, Dubai, all this, that they will actually do a citizenship straight away. You don't need to get the residency card. The way it works in the EU mainly is it's a residency by investment. So you have to start off with a card, but you can then convert it to a passport later on. This might explain it a bit better. It looks like a really busy slide, and I've only put this on really to give you an explanation. These are all programs that we do. So we do Antigua, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, Vanuatu, Malta, Turkey. We've also got Portugal, Greece, USA, obviously Spain, and the UAE. So they're all the different programs that we do as a company. I'm based here in Spain. This is where I live. So I concentrate on the Spanish Golden Visa. So we can ignore all these things to the left. These are just the idea. Say, for example, we talked about becoming a resident. How long does it take before you can become a citizen? Well, actually, on the left-hand side, if you're outside the EU, you can become a citizen straight away by doing a donation or investing. But that's not what we're looking at today. We're looking at residency programs. Now, with a residency program in Spain, it actually takes 10 years. So once you become a resident, 10 years after becoming a resident, you can actually change that to becoming a passport holder. You have to live for 5 years in the country. For the last 5 years, you have to live in the country. When I say live, you have to spend more than 6 months a year in the country, essentially becoming tax resident. But after that 10 years, you can then say, okay, I now want to become a passport holder. Once you become a passport holder, you then no longer need to have the holding asset, which got you the golden visa. So, for example, the property. With Spain, a really, really unique benefit for some people is that if you have an ex-Spanish colony passport, you can actually change your residency into citizenship within only 2 years, not 10 years. And this is a massive benefit. So for 2 years living in Spain for more than 6 months, you can change that residency card to a Spanish passport. The Spanish passport is actually now ranked number 2 in the world. It says on here, global ranking number 5. It is not. It's number 2 in the world in terms of passport strength. So 10 years if you're not ex-Spanish colony, and I will tell you what countries are ex-Spanish colony on the next slide. 10 years if you're just, from not an ex-Spanish colony. There are lots of ex-Spanish colonies, as you probably know, but I'll come on to that. Having said that, as I say, a lot of people are not really bothered about changing it into a passport anyway, because you still have the rights to stay, to live, to work, to retire here anyway. So, the changing it over is not necessary, but some people like to do that. Okay, so bear that in mind. Now, the minimum investment with Spain is 500,000, as it stands at the moment, euros into a property. Okay, that's what will get you the golden visa. Now, we've developed a scheme which was incredibly popular. It's what we've done the most of, where you can actually do it for as little as 350,000, not 500,000. So you can actually do it for less. The way that's done is the qualifying amount is still 500,000. But we actually pay rental income up front. So as a client, as someone coming in, you pay 350,000 plus the cost, legals and taxes and that, but 350,000 for all intents and purposes, and you're paid rental income up front, and that gives you the 500,000. So although you don't then get an income from that commercial property because you've had it up front, you get the golden visa for a lot less, for 350,000. So it's really, really popular. On the other programs, it's probably worth pointing this out at the moment here as well. Portugal, the reason it used to be popular is that you could do it for 280,000, but now it's 500,000, and that can't be into property. It has to be into an investment fund. The quirk with Portugal, by the way, if anyone's watching this and still thinks they won't have time to do the Spanish option, Portugal is a really, really good option as well, because you can actually get a passport within 5 years. That's everybody. And you don't need to live in a country either, similar to Spain. You don't actually have to keep your resident permit in Spain. You don't need to live in Spain. That's not to get your citizenship, to be a resident. With Portugal, it's very different. Anybody, once you get the qualifying asset, the 500,000 to a fund, you don't have to live there. You have to go, I think it's a week, a year, you have to go for the 5 years. Once you've done that, actually after 5 years, you can get a Portuguese passport. So we do that scheme for anyone that's interested. But let's move back and concentrate on Spain. With Spain, you can include children up to the age of 18 if they're dependent. You can include them over the age of 18 if they're dependent. So people if you've got children at a university, they can be included as long as we can show that they're dependent. And this is all on one application for 500,000 or 350,000. Okay, you don't need one for one person and then one for a spouse. So essentially, you can have one 500,000 or 350,000 for one of you. You can include your spouse. You can include all your children. You can include dependent parents as well. If they're over 65 and we prove that they're dependent, which is not particularly difficult to do, then you can actually have one application and put your children, your parents, and your spouse on it, which will give all of them the right to the healthcare, to live, to work, to retire, to have a pension. So it's a really good scheme in terms of getting other people involved as well. So it's a fantastic golden visa program, but as we know, it will be withdrawn. The only thing to come from this slide really is to bear in mind Portugal is a really good alternative option for a lot of people if Spain is out. But as it stands at the moment, Spain is not out, it's still there. So why Spain? I'll move through this relatively quickly because I think everybody watching this will know why they want to why they're interested in Spain. But just for some facts here, Spain is ranked #1 country worldwide for quality of life. I've lived here for 6-7 years. And it's fantastic. You get the sunshine. It's very conveniently positioned. You can drive to Portugal from here in about 4 hours. Obviously, you've got France as well nearby. The weather is pretty much guaranteed all the time. We have so little rain. It's very, very beautiful here as well. People are nice, laid back lifestyle as well. Everything's mañana. Makes it difficult sometimes getting things done. but it is a really nice country to live in, very high quality of life. It's the second most visited country by international tourists. I think most people, I say most people, a lot of people have been to Spain. You know, it's the country you go to get the weather as well. So it's very, very highly visited. It's actually got the fourth biggest economy in the EU and 14th in the world. Now, the economy is an interesting one because I've been here for a long time and I've seen obviously COVID, a strike come and go. I've seen a sort of recession that's come and go. And I can tell at the moment it's very vibrant here in terms of outlets and shops and commercial properties opening. It's really building up. The economy is very strong here. So it's a great place to live, particularly if you're looking to work and use a golden visa to work, because you can do that with a golden visa. And obviously there's lots of available employment in the country here as well. It's ranked the fifth best country in the world to live in. Fifth seems a bit high for me. I'd say it's better than fifth, but that's my choice. Sixth on the global retirement index. It's got a really good retirement program. It's got an incredibly good healthcare system as well. My wife's parents have used a healthcare system here, and we've used a healthcare system here, and it's really, really good. You know, I'm from the UK. It's certainly on a par with the UK. The only problem often is the language barrier, but if you learn the language, then it's really good healthcare system to use. Spanish Golden Visa, just give you a bit of background on it. It started back in 2013. So it's been going now about 11 years. As we say, we know it is going, but it's been going 11 years. It's been really successful. It says there's over 9,000 approved Golden Visa applications. In reality, I think it's near about 15,000 now. There's been lots of, particularly in the last year or two, it's really, it's really grown legs. It's really become incredibly popular. And it's raised over 3.5 billion in foreign investments for the government here. So it's raised a lot of money, but that's the argument really on the economy. You know, is all this money coming in, particularly on property prices, has that driven up house prices? As I mentioned earlier, I think it's hard to justify that when you look at the facts, but it's obviously a measure that a government could take to be seen to be doing something about the house prices. But the beauty of the Spanish Golden Visa is you don't need to spend any time in Spain. So once you have the visa, you don't need to come and spend any time in here. So if at the moment you're thinking, well, I kind of want one, but I'm not going to come over to Spain and live for 3 years, it doesn't matter. As long as you get the asset now, which you can pretty much do remotely, other than doing your biometrics, once you've got that residency permit, a golden visa card, you don't need to spend any time at all in Spain at all. As long as you hold that asset, then essentially you've got the golden visa. So you can come and go as you like, or not come at all, or wait 3 years, then come over. You have that asset. And that makes it very unique amongst the golden visa programs, and what makes, in a lot of respects, it very popular. Anybody can apply as long as you don't have a criminal record. Obviously, minor offences aren't particularly an issue, but we're talking a criminal record, something that's going to show up. Because part of the process is you have to have a criminal record check going back 5 years, wherever you've lived in the last 5 years, just to show that you don't have any criminal convictions. But as I mentioned earlier, you can include your spouse, your children, and your parents all onto your one application. And as I said, 500,000 is a qualifying amount, but we can do it for 350,000. So for that amount, you're getting your whole family included as well. The benefits of the Spanish Golden Visa is you get the right to live and work in Spain. There's none of this restricting 90 and 180-day rule. You can come and go as you like to Spain. You can freely travel, visa-free travel within all the 26 Schengen countries. You're still guided, bear in mind, by this 90 and 180-day rule outside of Spain. So, for example, if you went across to Portugal, you can only spend 90 days in Portugal before you have to leave, which is the rule as it is at the moment. But if you leave back to Spain, you can reset the 90 days. So you can do 90 days and 180 days. But instead of, for example, having to go back to your home country of America, you can actually just go across the border to Spain, stay in Spain for 90 days. Then you can go back to Portugal. So it makes it a lot easier. If you change it to citizenship, to the passport, which you can do in either 2 years or the 10 years, as I mentioned, then you don't need to worry about that at all anyway, because you can freely travel and spend as much time in any of the EU countries because you are an EU passport holder. So that is the benefit of getting a passport. You can actually establish a business in all of the Schengen countries. There are some tax benefits for expats as well. It depends what your tax status is. So whether you're going to become tax resident here or not, which is another conversation altogether, and I won't get into that. We're not specifically tax advisors, certainly guide you into the direction of tax advisors to help you with that. But there are tax benefits here as well. And you get access to the world-class healthcare and pensions as well, which is a major sort of draw for a lot of people. Now, just to whiz through some of the facts about the Spanish Golden Visa, it might answer some questions that people have. So the first one, the myth is you have to spend time in Spain to maintain residency. As I mentioned before, you don't have to spend any time in Spain. There are no minimum stay requirements. Only residential real estate qualifies. As I mentioned before, no. Commercial, residential, you can buy a parking space for 500,000 and that will qualify. As long as your purchase is for 500,000 of real estate, that will qualify. And it doesn't need to be one property of 500,000. You can actually have a number of properties to make up 500,000. If anybody's watching this already has a property in Spain, that can be used towards it, but it has to have been bought since 2013 when it was introduced. So if it was a property bought before then it wouldn't count. And it would always go on your purchase price, not actually what the value is now. So somebody said, I bought it for 150,000, it's now worth 500,000. That doesn't matter. It's 150,000 that they will use in order to ascertain whether you get the golden visa. The next one, there are limitations in where you can invest. No, there's not. Any of the Spanish islands, anywhere in Spain, you can invest. We tend to concentrate on Barcelona and Madrid because when you're looking at commercial properties, you know you're going to get a good asset in the center of Barcelona or Madrid. Like with any major city, you know you're going to get the growth on the value of the property and you know you're going to get good rental yield. So we concentrate on that from an investment perspective. It's a much better area to look at. The process is long and vague. No, it's not. It's actually the fastest process amongst all EU countries. And it's only 21 days to get your golden visa once you have the asset, which obviously we would do as quickly as possible for you. The other one is the Spanish program. It's expensive. It's not. The renewals and additional costs, like for getting the actual card itself, things like 73 euros. You're talking in the hundreds. You're not talking in the thousands for all the additional bits you may have to get on an ongoing basis. And the other bit is, as I mentioned before, you have to live in Spain for 10 years to qualify for citizenship. No, you can do it in as little as 2 years. And this is the slide that sort of explains this and the countries that would qualify. So if you are an if you're not ex-Spanish colony like myself from the UK, if I apply, I get my Spanish golden visa, I have to wait 10 years to change that for a passport. And the last 5 years, I have to spend living in Spain. Living means more than 6 months a year in Spain, so you become tax resident. So you do that for 5 years, I can change my residency card, and that can then become a passport. But for some people, ex-Spanish colony, they can do it in 2 years. So they can essentially get the golden visa, come over, stay more than 6 months for 2 years in a row, and you can then change that to a passport. And furthermore, their spouse can then piggyback on the back of your passport the next year and then also get a passport in year 3 because they're now married to someone who has a Spanish passport. Brilliant. Now, the ex-Spanish colony countries are Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Equatorial Guinea, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, the Philippines, Uruguay, and Venezuela. And in addition, there is Andorra and Portugal, but it doesn't make much sense because they're in the EU anyway. So there's a lot of countries there. So if anybody's watching this who has that connection, who has that passport of one of those countries, you could get the Spanish passport in only 2 years, which is fantastic. In order to get the passport, so after the 2 years or 5 years, you have to do a basic language test. It's not particularly difficult, particularly if you've been living here. You have to do a cultural exam. Again, it's relatively basic. If you've been living here, you'd expect to be able to do that. And as I said before, you have to live in Spain for 2 years if you're ex-Spanish colony, or 5 years if you are not. And it says third best. It's not. I checked it as of the beginning of this year. It's the second best passport in the world. And when you get that passport, you can travel to 190 countries visa-free, and you can travel freely throughout Europe. So it's fantastic. And you can live and work anywhere in the EU. So not just Spain, you can go to Portugal and live, you can go to France and live, and you can work there, set up a business there, so on and so forth. So really, really good passport to have. Now, the way you get the golden visa at the moment, so as it stands at the moment, as we know, this is going to change because they are looking to get rid of all of these as we understand it. Now, as I say, that's got to go back and forth. So whether that remains the case is yet to be seen because a lot of people are going to object to it. But that's what they're trying to do at the moment. So they're trying to remove the golden visa full stop. But at the moment, you can invest in real estate for 500,000. As I mentioned before, we can do commercial at 350,000 by paying rental income up front. Again, we can have a discussion about that if it's of interest to you. You can invest equity into a business. There's a set of rules in terms of business, in terms of how long the business has been running, how many staff it employs, etc., etc. But that's a minimum of 1 million. A bank deposit or investment fund is 1 million, and government bonds are 2 million. So as you can imagine, the real estate is by far the most popular choice. But as we understand it, these are all going to be going. And the difference with Portugal last year is that Portugal had other options which still remain. So although they had real estate for 280,000, 500,000, which it later became, you also always had the option of a fund for 500,000. With Spain, even if they ultimately only get rid of the real estate, all the other options are 1 million plus. So the real estate option really is a good option, particularly if you do it for the 350. Now, this is a key slide for me. And hopefully it helps explain why, as a wealth management company, we do it the way we do. And it's where you look at commercial versus residential, which is the best option when you're going for the Spanish Golden Visa. Now, I'll start off by saying, if you know tomorrow you want to move over to Spain and live in a property, and you've seen somewhere we want to live and it's 500,000 plus, then you'll get the Golden Visa, and you don't need somebody like us. You can apply now, you can get that property, you can move into it, you're going to live there, that's brilliant. But for most people, they don't really know where they're going to ultimately want to live. They might want to test different areas. They might move somewhere and then find out that's actually what happened with me. That's not why I ultimately wanted to end up living. So therefore, you then have to sell your property and move somewhere else. So the key with this is, with regards to commercial assets, they're far lower transfer taxes. So on the purchase of a commercial asset, you typically pay 1.5% to 2.5% in transfer taxes. Now, if you compare that to a residential purchase is typically between 8 and 11.5% for a transfer tax. Now, this equates on a 500,000 property to 40,000 less tax on a commercial property versus a real estate property. So you are immediately saving 40,000 by buying that commercial asset. Furthermore, with a commercial asset, you have longer term leases, so they're more secure. The tenants will cover most of the expenses. And also, your average rental yield is normally between about 4 and 5% on a commercial asset. On the residential asset, on the right-hand side, you are looking around 2 to 3%. So you're actually going to get around double, or certainly a lot more, rental yield by looking at commercial. So that's why we focus as a wealth management company on commercial. Now, what you've got to do in a situation like this as well is kind of get out, it's a rational investment decision versus an emotional decision. Residential tends to be emotional. People love buying a residential property and looking at it and thinking, I'll spend a week, a year in that property and then I'll rent it out the rest of the time. But you have to think of the extra it's going to cost you, the lower rental yield that you're going to get. There are other issues, things such as squatters, which is a problem in Spain, but that, there's lots of reasons. But as I say, as a company, we concentrate on commercial. So with that in mind, we do two options for people with commercial. The first option is the 350. Well, let's start with the 500. First one's a 500,000. So very straightforward. We look at commercial properties in Barcelona and Madrid. We identify the best ones. We do our due diligence. We look at the best rental yields and ones that have the licenses, all the best properties. You'd pay 500,000, and in return, we set everything up. We get you the gold visa, etc., etc. And then you've got a passive income coming in of anywhere around 4 to 5%. So it gives you that income. You've got the golden visa, and anytime you want to get rid of it, you can do. You can sell the property anytime. Brilliant. You've got your golden visa. But in order to kind of compete with Portugal's 280,000 last year, we introduced a 350,000 turnkey solution, as we call it. And the idea of that is we look at a property, we immediately pay you. These tend to be distressed properties. We look at ones that need to make it viable. We look at ones that we can add value to. So we look at the center of Madrid to Barcelona, and we look at ones that we can essentially renovate, ones that come with the licenses, get the license for it, get the tenants in, and then get that up to the value it needs to be. That's how it works. But essentially, you pay 350,000, you're immediately paid 150,000, which is essentially the equivalent of 3% rental income, 3% per annum rental income up front for 10 years. So if you work out 3% of 500,000 times that by 10, that gives you the 150,000. So you get that up front. And then for the next 10 years, you don't get any income because you've already had that up front. The reason it's 3% and not 4 to 5% up front is because we're taking all the risk. So whether that property, that commercial property is tenanted or not, it's not your concern. It makes no difference. You don't have any ongoing cost. All the taxes are paid on your behalf as well. You don't pay any taxes. There is no ongoing costs whatsoever to you. You just have the asset in your name. We manage it. You've had that rental income up front. You have to hold it for 10 years though. And that's where some people it's not suitable. You can sell it after 5 years, but it's not such a great investment, which I'll come on to if you do it that way. And the other option, as I say, is residential. Now, as I say, the turnkey solution, as I've just kind of gone through this really, essentially we look at normally commercial options, which are catering, retail, office, that kind of main sectors. They're normally in the centre of Barcelona or Madrid. That's what we look at. It's a 500,000 in property. So we have to do a 500,000 investment, have to be valued at 500,000 to give you the golden visa. You get your 150,000 up front, which is to 10 years at 3% paid up front. And then we get you the golden visa. As I say, there's some examples of the kind of properties that we look at. I will say at this point, I don't want to over confuse things. There is another 350,000 option we offer, which again, if it's investing within a hotel, it also gives you the golden visa. But again, that's a conversation really to be had on an individual basis. With regards to the 350,000 option, the exit for this, how you get out of that once you hold the 350,000 option, you've been paid the 150,000 up front. So at the end of 10 years, you can do one of three things. First of all, you can actually exercise a guaranteed buyback option. So into the contract, we guarantee that we'll give you the 350,000 back. You paid out 350,000, we will give you 350,000 in 10 years' time back to you. Now, obviously, that doesn't represent a great investment because you've made no interest, but you just know you'll get your money back. Now, we've kind of done that to give you peace of mind in case the property market crashes during the 10 years. It's just there for that reason. Most people won't exercise that option. Most people exercise option 2, which is to sell it on the open market at the going rate. So if you have an asset now, which normally is going to be around when we get them, once we've renovated and once we've done everything to them, it's got to be valued around the 500,000 marks. So tenanted, get the licenses, we get it renovated, it's going to be valued around that mark. Obviously then, if you look in 10 years' time and you look at the way property works, particularly in the centre of Barcelona and Madrid, in 10 years' time, it's going to be worth at least 500,000. A lot more you'd expect. So that's what most people would do, but you've got the guaranteed buyback built in. Or option 3, you maintain ownership of it and you just then get the income coming in because you've paid back essentially the income, the rental income you had up front, and you can then keep that asset and just collect rent. So you have them 3 options. A lot of people say, well, what happens if I want to get out of it before 5 years? Well, it's not such a good investment. We've included this to give you a bit of peace of mind. And basically, the exit starts in year 5. So in year 5, we will actually give you a guaranteed buyback. We'll buy it back off you for 175,000. In year 6, 210,000. Year 7, 245,000. Year 8, 280, and so on until you get to year 10, guaranteed 350,000. It doesn't represent a great investment, in my opinion, if you're going to plan to get out of it before the 10 years. But the reason that's in there is you know that if you did need to get out of it in year 5, you're not going to suddenly be lumbered or get no money back. That's not the case at all. It's just, this is designed to essentially be a 10-year package. If that's no good, you have the option of the 500,000, and that is a traditional, you pay 500,000, we forget you the property, we do everything for you, and then you get the income. This is an example of one we did a year or 2 ago. It was actually 600,000 this. The rent was 3,050 a month. That's then paid to the investor, and you can sell it anytime you want, and it's completely flexible, but obviously you're investing, it's costing you 500,000, not the lower amount. As I say, we also have a hotel option that works similar to the 350,000 option. It's basically a hotel chain here in Spain called Soho Boutique Hotels. We've got 28 hotels all around Spain, including a couple near where I am now. And they're building a new one in Madrid. And to do that, they raise the money through private investors. So what we can actually do with that, we get investors to invest 350,000. Okay, you get your 150,000 up front, and there's a guaranteed buyback at the end of 10 years of 500,000. So you've invested 350,000. Year 10 is a guaranteed buyback of 500,000. There's no selling it on the open market. There's no early exit. It's very rigid, but it does give you, written into that contract, a hotel We'll buy it back off you for 500,000. You've invested 350,000. So you know exactly what you're going to make as a kind of 10-year investment. So it's very, very good, but not so flexible. So again, very good option with that. Any money invested is secured on all their hotels, not the one they're building. So it's all very safe, all very secure. So there's kind of a number of different options we have for people. But as I say, we concentrate on commercial mainly because of the lower transfer taxes and the lower taxes that you pay. So that's it. I am running out of time here. Okay. There's a couple of questions that had come in, and I'll quickly sort of go through these. So the first one is coming in here. Is there still time? Well, we've kind of covered this in terms of the time. Yes, there is. We weren't doing this before, but we've had a number of people who wanted to start the process, and they've sort of said, well, what guarantees can we get this through? What we will do is, into any commercial contracts that we approve, we can actually get it written in there that as long as we get everything back on the days that we need them, like we don't, we're asking for, because obviously we need to get a lot of information from you. As long as we get that back in time, that can be put into the contracts. That's a really good one as well. Are golden visas actually being processed in Portugal? Yes, they are. Portugal's had quite a big backlog following last year, but they're being processed there. And it's a really good alternative for people who are thinking, I'm not going to have time to do Spain. We have similar structures with Portugal where you can invest into an investment fund but be paid interest up front. So similar to what we're talking about with the real estate properties. You've paid your interest up front, and then you have an exit at year 5 as opposed to earlier as well. So that's one way of doing it as well. Someone just put, is it Windows or Apple Mac? I'm not sure what you mean with regards to that. We've got, so yeah, we're doing everything here on Windows. I don't know if that makes any difference to anybody else. But as I say, we'll send a copy of this out. Future of the golden visa, someone's just put on there. That's been covered. Yes, we know what it is. We know that we've got time on there. Is real estate investment still a viable route? Yes, it is. As we mentioned, we still have it as a viable route. I think what's going to happen, just to sort of summarize in this, we're going to get to September the 9th. Probably no in Spain, maybe it's supposed to be a little bit later than that, but we're then going to suddenly get this kind of more of a firm timeline. But for anyone that's thinking of doing this, it's really important, get it moving now. At the end of the day, we know we can get it through if you do it now. If you want to talk in more detail, you've got the QR code there, you've got my telephone number there, you've got our email address there. We're going to send a copy of the link out to everybody. So whether that's Windows or Apple Mac, whatever, it should open. We're also going to put this up on our Holborn website, the webinar, so you can have a look at it on there. But my advice to anyone looking to do this is, if it is of interest to you, you really need to start sort of looking at it now, because we know that we've got time to do it now. But obviously, we need to make sure we're going to have enough time to get everything through, which we know at the moment we have. So that's where we stand at the moment. As I say, take a note of my number there. Take a note of the email and everything like that. And yeah, look forward to seeing you.